Welcome to Trouble with Tish. I'm Tish and I be Trouble. And if you're a returner, welcome back. Today we have another Mask Monday and we are working on the second half of chapter 17. So if you want to continue on this journey with me, stick around.
Troubles on the mind, hands around your throat, out in open waters trying to stay afloat. Remember to forget.
Alright, like I said, we have the last half of chapter 17 of Rise of the Deva'shi. It is from the Chronicles of Partholon by Jennifer Alice Provost. We have the Konuk Honey Facial Mask. It has collagen essence. It can be quickly absorbed by the skin, making it feel smoother and more moisturized. And honey helps create a clean environment on the skin. So we're going to stick this on our face and get going. Alright, we got the mask on with a fight. These masks are very, very thin, and you have to fight with them to get them to not just completely stick to themselves. They drive me crazy. Alright, so we have the second half of chapter 17. This morning, when I met with Ashera and Herrick, it was decided that I will travel to the north. The demons we intercepted were coming from that direction, and Herrick claims there have been other reports of activity in that region. Not that he informed me of these reports, he added bitterly. Herrick seems to think that someone or something is aiding a Mordath in the area, or possibly giving aid to Ascaloth himself. My intent is to spend time in each region and try to learn more of the Mordath Gull's plans, which I'll do by visiting each of the 5 elven lands. Hopefully, the local lords will have noticed something out of the ordinary and give us some clues as to our enemy's thoughts. Despite the warm day, I shivered, more from the thought of being without Aelmar than from what the demon lord could be planning. I knew that the north was populated almost exclusively by elves who had come to Partholon's aid during the Great War, and had sustained great losses in Ashera's quest for victory. She never forgot their sacrifices, and in her gratitude did not ask for any kind of tribute from the elves, but periodically sent representatives to remind them of her continued goodwill. While the rational part of my mind understood this, and understood it quite well, I could only comprehend that Aelmar was going away, far away, and I needed him more than anything. "You're leaving?" I asked as I tried to keep my voice steady. He could not leave now, especially not now. I felt my throat burning as I tried not to burst into tears. "I have chosen you to accompany me," Aelmar said, and my dread turned into elation. I set my empty bowl on the floor behind me and took his, noticing that it was still full. "I forgot. You don't like tea," I said absently as I put it aside. I crawled into his lap and wrapped my arms around him so tightly I wondered if he could breathe. "If you left me alone, I think I would die," I said into his shoulder. "I can't stand being away from you for half a day. How could I go to the north without you?" he murmured into my neck, holding me gently as to not aggravate my wounds. "We will be gone a long time, maybe as long as 2 seasons if the winter storms begin early." "I don't care if we're gone for 200 winters as long as I'm with you," I said. Aelmar kissed my forehead as he stroked my back, and we remained before the fire until the elder sun went to rest. The sky darkened, and I moved from the warmth of his arms with the intent of dressing myself for the inevitable meeting with the Queen. Aelmar held onto my hand for a moment, his eyes telling me that I did not have to speak to her so soon, that I could remain in my chamber, and he would speak to the Queen on my behalf. "I would rather get this over with," I said, not adding that if he went to the Queen without me, he would not be with me, and I could not bear to be alone. As I chose my clothing, wondering all the while how long I would remain so needy, my wounds cried out for something soft and yielding, but instead I dressed as a huntress in dark leather, riding gear, so dark it was almost black. I wanted to appear strong, as if nothing like this could ever happen to me and never would again. I strapped on my thigh sheath and realized my dagger was gone. I shuddered when I realized it must be still in the stable. I returned to Aelmar, who again had turned his back in his needless but incredibly gallant way, and I sat before him with his shirt in one hand and a comb in the other. He tossed the garment aside and went to work on my hair, and he deftly wove it into another braid. After he tied off the end, I leaned against his chest and shut my eyes. "You don't have to do this tonight," Elmar reminded me. "I don't want to do this tomorrow either," I replied. I moved to rise, but he held me to him and rubbed his cheek against my neck. "Before we go, I need to tell you something," Elmar said softly. "I want you to know that you are still beautiful, you are still perfect, and I love you more right now than I did this morning." "How could you possibly love me more?" I asked despondently as I thought of my skin mottled by bruises, puffy and scarred. "Your courage and your strength, but mostly for your mercy," he said. "A lesser person would have demanded his head and been well within their rights. You gave him his life when he does not deserve it." "I didn't do that for him," I said, turning to face Elmar. "I did it for you. I could not let you kill one of your hunters. I didn't want his death to weigh upon your heart. That's why I told you he wasn't worth it." "Now I love you more than I did a moment ago," Elmar said as he tilted my chin to his. His lips were soft on mine, so soft I could hardly feel him. He placed his cheek on mine and spoke quietly into my ear. "For more than 150 winters, I have been the sole dispenser of justice among the hunters, and while everyone looks to me for help, no one worries for me. That you would put me before you, even after such an ordeal, makes me realize that you truly are a gift from the gods." "I will always put you first," I said as I kissed him again. I wrapped my arms around him as my soul melted into his. He must have felt the same way as he slowly moved to lie on his back, taking me with him. Everything was perfect until he grasped my waist and inadvertently squeezed a bruise, and I flinched in pain. I pressed my forehead to his chest and regretted that our moment had ended, just as all our other moments had. "We should go," I said as I got to my feet. As we traversed the distance to the Queen's chambers, Elmar kept his arms around my shoulder, holding me as if his body was a shield against any who would harm me. I noted that everyone we encountered, whether they were the lowliest of the Sephira or a hardened soldier, practically leapt to avoid us, while others typically made way for Elmar, as he was the first hunter, and deserving of such respect. Today it seemed more pronounced. I stole a glance at his face, and the hard set of his jaw and determined gaze told onlookers to give him a wide berth. This was easily accomplished, as most of the palace had been terrified of him for many, many winters. I slid my arm around his waist, grateful for his reputation as a fearsome warrior, both on and off the battlefield. When we reached the Queen's chambers, I was shocked when Elmar simply placed his hand on the door to enter. "You enter her rooms without even a knock?" I asked incredulously. "Only I and one other may do so," he replied. I assumed the other must be Herrick, but as the door swung open, I saw Finley pacing inside. He turned to us, his eyes asking Elmar a silent question. I placed my hand on his arm, and he caught me in a rough embrace. "Please tell me we were there in time," he said as he squeezed the breath from my lungs. Elmar pried him off me, and I did my best to give him a reassuring smile. "I am untouched," I said plainly, clearly more information than Finley wanted, judging by the color of his ears, but I knew of no better way to explain it. He embraced me again, and as I tried not to whimper in pain, Elmar quietly reminded him of my bruises. As Finley released me, I tried to move back to Elmar, but I was instead swept into Ashera's arms. She smelled cool and green, like a fresh spring meadow, and I felt a profound sense of calm as she held me. I closed my eyes and let her serenity and grace wash over me, and I clung to the Queen, as I once had clung to my mother. Ashera led me to a low bench, not releasing my hands as I sat next to her, and Elmar stood behind me with his hands on my shoulders. "Please tell me you are all right," she said, her dark eyes glittering. "You don't have to be strong for me," she added. "I will be fine," I replied. "Do you need me to tell you what happened?" Again, my stomach twisted around itself at the mere suggestion of describing those horrible events to her or anyone. My face must have betrayed my thoughts as the Queen gently touched my cheek in an attempt to calm me. No, she said. "Finley has told me quite enough. I am so very sorry this has happened to you, and I will do anything within my power to help you. You have but to ask, and it is yours. I beamed at her, so grateful for her kindness, and grateful that I had her friendship. "As long as I never see him again, that is all I require," I said. The Queen looked from me to Aylmar, and she observed his protective stance. "Aylmar, you certainly don't need to guard her here," she said, as she rose from the bench. "Sit, you have earned a respite as well." Aylmar moved to occupy the seat Ashera vacated, while she settled next to Finley, who had taken a seat across from me. I took in the image of the Queen and her second hunter, and remarked to myself that he looked very much at home in her private chambers. I wondered if the arrangement Aylmar told me of was more than casual. We remained with the Queen as she took her evening meal, and I continued to marvel at her easy manner with Finley. They were always so formal with each other when I had seen them in the past, but as the night wore on, they relaxed, and their true affection for each other flowed between them. Ashera's eyes softened as she looked at the second hunter, and if I did not know better, I would have said that she was in love with him. A deep, true love, like the kind I shared with Aylmar. I was aware that Aylmar frequently went to Finley for advice about me, probably because Finley had maintained his relationship with the Queen for over 100 winters, and I hoped we would remain as passionate for many winters to come. The Queen and Finley were excellent hosts, and their companionship managed to put me at ease as I momentarily forgot the afternoon's wretched events. As the evening wore on, Aylmar managed to relax as well, and after his third glass of wine, he laughed out loud, something the Queen did not let go unnoticed. "Why, Aylmar," she said, "I haven't heard you laugh in at least 10 winters." 20, Finley chimed in. "Your fiery huntress may yet break down your defenses," Ashera teased, as she gave me a knowing smile. I blushed and cast my eyes down, but Aylmar put his arm around me and kissed my temple. "She already has," he replied. Aylmar and I remained with them long into the night, and as we took our leave of them, Finley walked us to the door, which swung open as my own. When we were in the corridor, I asked Aylmar if he had charmed it as well. "Yes," he replied. "It only opens for me, Finley, and the Queen. But earlier today she asked me to alter the spell to open for you as well. I was amazed and touched that the Queen thought so highly of me as to allow access to her private world. I believe she has more than an arrangement with Finley," I said quietly, and Aylmar escorting me into a little-used hall, he pulled me into an alcove, ensuring that we were alone before he explained. "They are bound," he said quietly. "Very few are aware of this." I let this knowledge sink in for a moment. I could understand why one would keep a casual arrangement quiet, to avoid scandal, but a binding was different. It was something to celebrate, not keep in the shadows. "Why would they keep this a secret?" I asked. "The Queen believes it would make Finley a target," he replied, "thus endangering his life. That's why we do not quell the rumors about Ashera and I, as a bound woman would never seek another's bet. I speculated that those rumors were fueled by the first hunter wandering in and out of the Queen's chambers at all hours of the night, but did not voice my opinion." "Who else knows of this?" I asked. "Aside from Finley and Ashera, only you and I," he replied. "Most of the hunters suspect that there's something between them, but no one thinks they are bound." "Not even the prelate knows?" I asked in amazement. Aylmar was visibly irritated as he responded. "Herrick is loyal, and has excellent command of the Legion, but he is a terrible person," he said. "If he knew, he would deride Ashera as weak for wanting another's company." I was about to voice my treasonous thoughts about how despicable I found Herrick when Aylmar placed a finger on my lips. "I don't want to talk about him right now," he said. "I only want to speak of you and I." "What about us?" I asked, assuming it must concern our journey to the north. "Do you know what it is to be bound?" he asked. "Not really," I replied truthfully. "I know that the bond is strong, and it can only be held by 2 immortals. I don't understand how it works, or how the bond is created. But I am mortal, so I don't need to know, as I will never be bound." Aylmar placed his hand on the nape of my neck and gazed deeply into my eyes as he continued. "Are you so certain that you are mortal?" he asked. "If you were, you would not be able to call fire, and magic would not respond so readily to you. For a mortal to learn the workings of magic takes many, many decades of study, yet you mastered a spell in less than a day. I can see magic on you, flowing over you, like sunlight. I am human, I protested, but he pulled me even closer, his forehead against mine. Not entirely, he insisted. How can we be sure? I will find out how we can know, Elmar promised. If I cannot find a way to determine your bloodline, I will share my immortality with you. I watched his face and the emotions that played across it, uncertainty, hope, concern, and wondered why he was so insistent that I was not what I knew I was, a full-blooded human. And why would he offer me his very life when my heart sang with joy? Is this what you wanted to ask me? I asked hesitantly, not wanting to believe it if it were not true, but desperately hoping it was. He caressed my cheek with the back of his hand, while his other hand nervously played with the end of my braid. Latera, I love you more than I ever thought I could love another. I've already wasted so much time with you, time we could have been together, and I don't want to lose another moment. He watched his hands as his hair fell across his face, and I knew he was using all of his fabled courage to continue. If you do me the honor of binding yourself to me, of becoming my bound mate, I will love you and protect you for all eternity. Do you choose to ask me something of such importance in a dark, dusty hall? I asked as I raised an eyebrow. He laughed softly. He clearly wanted to ask me in a more intimate setting, but the day's events had altered his plans. It's not the location that matters, only the answer. I looked at him, memorizing his striking face, loving how his eyes gleamed in the dim light. I wanted to tell him yes, to unequivocally agree with his opinion that I was magical, but I could not be selfish and hold him to me if I did not have the right. I knew the union created by a binding was eternal, and broken by nothing, not even death. As much as I loved Elmar, I could not let him suffer without me if I died as a mortal and he lived on, alone, forever. If you can find a way to determine my heritage, I began slowly, and it tells me, without any doubt, that I can be bound, then yes. Elmar was stunned by my words, as if he did not expect me to answer so quickly. I placed my palms on the side of his face, and felt his strong cheekbones as I pushed his hair behind his ear. To not look so surprised. Surely you knew I would say yes. I love you, Elmar, more than my very life. Never doubt that I do. Elmar's face was taken over by the widest, most elated grin I had ever seen. He pulled me against him and held me so tightly my wounds cried out. He whispered against my neck that I had no idea of how happy I had made him, and swore that my happiness and well-being were all that mattered to him. I told him I was already content, for he was all I would ever need, and he rained kisses on my face, then my neck, and then my hands before he held me again. Gently, I reminded him, or I will tell anyone who asks how you tricked me into complying with your wishes in the servants' passage. We'll tell them of the day we met and how you threw a saddle at me, he countered. I did nothing of the sort, I said indignantly. What were you doing standing in my way like that? I thought you were quite rude, I added. I had to see where you went, Elmar said as he stroked my cheek with his thumb. I caught the briefest glimpse of you as you went around the back, and I had no choice but to follow. I have been mesmerized by your beauty from that moment on. I laughed quietly to myself at his words. When he demanded to know what was so funny, I told him that Finley told me a version of that very tale the night I was poisoned. Finley, he grumbled. I will have words with him. I have never betrayed any confidence of his, yet he tells you everything I say. If he hadn't, I wouldn't have gone after you, I reminded him. And if you are to be my mate, you need to say such things to me, not him. He conceded to both of my points and murmured in my ear that we should return to my chamber. We should go to the hall, I said, and he protested that it was late and I should be resting. They need to see that I am not hurt. Elmar declared that we were going against his better judgment, as I could rest tonight and show them I'm fine tomorrow. Despite his objections, he slipped his arm around my waist and we walked into the hall. We entered near the main hearth and found the hunters spread out in their usual spot around the smaller hearth near the rear entrance. There were several empty wine jugs on the table behind them, and none seemed to notice or care that two figures approached. Braun finally looked up and said my name in surprise. Slowly, the rest of the hunters turned toward us, the pain in their eyes destroying the blissful glow I retained from earlier. I did not know how to tell them I was all right without turning it into a speech, and we all stared at each other for a moment. Saria was the first to approach me, and I saw that she had my missing dagger. When I saw you didn't have it, I went back to look, she explained. I gratefully accepted it, and after it had been resheathed, she hugged me, hesitantly at first, but tightening her grip when she felt me clinging to her. Thank you, I whispered in her ear, for everything. We broke apart, and she nodded as Elmar and I approached the hearth. Out of habit, he sat on the floor and pulled me down to his side. Gods, said Anetha as she rolled her eyes. Now Eaz are sitting on the floor like him. Everyone laughed, and the tense mood shattered like glass. Elmar and I did not stay long, as it was late, and I had the impression that they were only in the hall to keep from going to their rooms, alone with their thoughts. The hunters wandered off one by one, and when only Braun and Luth remained, we bid them good night and left. I thought to myself that we already behaved as if we were bound mates, and we were certainly treated as such by the others. My arm found its way about Elmar's waist, and he kissed my forehead as he held me against him. A smile crept across my lips as my thoughts returned to becoming his mate. I wondered what the ceremony would be like, what kind of a dress I would wear, but my pleasant contemplations were interrupted when Kevyn stepped into our path. Elmar tried to move me behind him, again shielding me with his body, but I stopped him and asked Kevyn what he wanted. I'm not going to pretend that we were ever friends, or that I deserve your friendship, but I want you to know I would never hurt you, Kevyn said slowly and carefully as Elmar glared at him. He cast his eyes downward and took a deep breath before he continued, well aware that if he said the wrong thing, Elmar would likely strike him to the floor. When I chased you at the border, I just wanted to be with you, but I never would have... Kevyn straightened, first looking Elmar in the eye, and then me. I saw that Kevyn was one of the few who were as tall as the first hunter, for most couldn't hope to be at eye level with him. I would never hurt you, especially after you rescued me from that beast, but if that had never happened, I still wouldn't. I could see how difficult it was for him to say these things, and for all my prior hatred of Kevyn, I appreciated his words. I know you wouldn't, I said as I touched his arm, and thank you. I offered him a smile, and he simply nodded in reply. Elmar inclined his head to Kevyn and ushered me past him as he replaced his arm around my shoulder. Your compassion knows no bounds, he whispered in my ear. It's an interesting contrast to one as surly as you, I teased. And he replied by stating he would punish me for my insolence. You will not, I challenged. I'm already injured, and to do so would make you a cruel beast of a man. I have been called worse, he said with a wry grin. So I have heard, I said while trying to evade him, but he caught me by the waist and hoisted me into his arms. I begged him to let me down, as I was completely capable of walking, but he ignored my pleas. His manner abruptly changed from playful to caring as we crossed the threshold to my chamber, and he released me onto my bed. Elmar knelt in front of me and pulled off my boots, and then unlaced my gauntlets. He began to ask why I had bothered to put them on, but as the first fell away and revealed my bruised wrists, the words died on his lips. Wasn't the leather painful for you? Elmar asked as he traced the bruises. I didn't want anyone to see them, I replied, staring at our feet. He carefully removed the other gauntlet and asked if I wanted him to remain. Of course I want you to stay. You always stay, I answered, wondering why he would even ask. I mean, remain to help you, he said. When I did not answer, he got up to tend the fire, but was at my side in an instant when I softly cried out. The leather had become stuck to the gouges, and I had to pull it from my skin. I forbid you to wear this until you are healed, he said sternly, as he examined how much worse I had made my shoulder. When he saw the wound on my thigh, I thought he was going to order me to bed rest, but instead he retrieved one of the ointments left over from my blood burns and began to salve and bandage it. Once the wound was tightly wrapped, he gently put me on my back before he turned his own. Elmar shed his clothing and climbed into bed. As he wrapped his arms around me, he murmured of how much he loved me and how dearly he wanted to become my mate. As he kissed my forehead and nestled me to him, I thought he was being so loving, so wonderful, so perfectly him. I burst into tears. He did not ask me what was wrong, for he already knew, and held me quietly until I found the words to explain. I feel like something has been taken from us, I said hoarsely, like he robbed us of the most important thing we have. I could not go on, but he knew what I meant. I could not let things progress further that night, no matter how much I wanted him. I just couldn't. The most important thing we have is our love, and no one can take that, he said. Elmar turned my chin to his, and I wept again when I saw his adoring eyes. We will always be here. We can wait another night, or 10, or 1,000. It does not matter. He kissed away my tears and held me as tightly as he could without hurting me. I did not answer him, for my voice was lost, and cried myself to sleep in his arms. All right. So, that was chapter 17. I'm going to take this off. This is itchy, and it feels like it's going in my eyeballs. I'm having fun with this mask. I think I'm going to definitely have to wipe my eyes before I apply any makeup for sure. Alright, we will continue next week with chapter 18, hopefully. That looks like it's going to be a long one too, but I think I can get through it in one sitting. I think that one was like 36 pages. Anyways, this is a collaboration with the Beauty Ninjas for Mask Monday. I have linked a playlist below for the rest of the Beauty Ninjas. Go check out what they have going on for their Mask Mondays. There's also a playlist for if you would like to catch up on what's been going on with the book as well. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe. All the good stuff is below. I hope every single one of you has an absolutely amazing day, and I will see you all next time. Bye.
Troubles on the mind, hands around your throat, out in open waters trying to stay afloat. Remember to forget.